welcome to yet another episode of Wealth Strategies Unleashed with Concenture Wealth Management. I'm Robert Gilliland, and we're very lucky today to have with us the
Karen Hyder.
Perfect, awesome. And so, hey, Karen, what I thought we would do today, because we get a lot of phone calls from clients and things like that worried about retirement, and there's this big trend out there or a big topic of conversation, I guess is a better way to say it, about this upcoming retirement crisis. Mm-hmm. We have people getting older, people getting ready to retire, and there's some interesting facts that kind of came into place. And that if you go look at the average 55 to 64-year-old, according to the latest numbers that we've looked at, the average person has $408,000. Now that's average. What's really scary is the fact that the median, so that's the middle point, means there's a lot of people with a lot less and a lot of people with a lot more actually have $134,000 saved away.
Isn't that terrifying? I feel like that should just stop everybody right there for a second to think about the fact that it's as low as that number is.
And let's think about kind of some of the contributing factors, right? Back in the 80s, or prior to, call it the mid 80s or so, people had pensions. Mm-hmm. They could plan on this, and then they had Social Security go with it, and pensions were there. Now, people have to rely on their 401ks.
It's a lot more rare now to see a company actually issue a pension to an employee.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you also have the fact that we're living longer. That's the good news.
Yeah.
But what the challenge is that life becomes a lot more expensive as you get older. So let's go through and let's kind of talk about some of the things that people can do to help minimize the impact of this upcoming retirement crisis. When you go and think about it, what's the very first thing that kind of comes to your mind?
I think for us, it's starting with a plan. There's so many things that need to be addressed. I think you need to first sit down and make a plan for what steps to go through and in what order to make sure you're addressing all the facets. And I would start with budgeting and looking at your savings as your very first thing.
Yeah, in the reality is that planning starts, it doesn't matter what age, right?
Earlier the better, I would say.
Yeah, in fact, just yesterday I had a conversation with one of our clients who is brand new in their career, recently graduated, and he's like, am I saving enough? Because I want to be able to retire. But that also moves to that person who's 45, who still has a little bit of runway left.
Yep.
Am I saving enough?
Yep.
That 55-year-old, you mentioned budgeting. The thing is that as you get closer to retirement, there's good debts and bad debts.
Definitely.
And those bad debts would be like credit card, especially now with interest rates in the 20s on your credit cards. You got to plan for how often you're going to buy a new car, these kind of things. Yep. Getting that budget so that it's paid down is vitally important.
Well, and making sure that those debts are manageable in your cash flow. If it's something that you're having to pull from savings to be able to pay that debt, that's not a smart debt in that case. So making sure that it's something you can pay for on a monthly basis, doesn't take you out of your ability to pay for it and keep maintain your regular cash flow, then that's okay.
One thing that we have noticed also is with clients, making sure they have that emergency fund, right? Because if you don't have that emergency fund and you're planning for retirement, then what ends up happening is that you end up having to tap into those retirement savings, which could be an expensive tap.
Absolutely.
Right? And then on top of that, if you're in retirement or right there at it, if you don't have that emergency savings and the air conditioning goes out, or you need 4 new tires, or something comes up, you might be delaying when you're actually able to go through to retire.
Absolutely. And one thing we've been telling clients too, you typically hear 3 to 6 months is what you should have on hand for emergency savings. With inflation being where it is, it doesn't hurt to have a couple extra months just to make sure you have plenty of cash and can take care of any emergency that pops up.
Yeah, I think as you're going through and looking at the treating yourself like a bill to optimize your savings. It's funny, I talk with my kids all the time, and I talked with that client yesterday about, hey, look, the very first bill you got to pay is yourself. The next one is for rent. Next one is for this. Making sure that you have them so that you know that you're putting money away for the long term as well as that emergency fund, and then from there short term.
Yep,
right?
Absolutely.
Kind of inside there. Having that plan, getting your budget under control, getting really control of what it actually costs you to live.
That's what I was going to say. Not just taking care of your debts, but understanding what are you actually spending on a monthly basis? Where is all your cash flow going? After you pay yourself into savings and you take care of all the necessary things, what else are you spending your money on, and making sure that you have a good handle of what that number is?
Yeah, one of the ways that I like to kind of think about that is that as we're working with people getting ready for retirement, is that you have your essential goals or essential expenses. That is rent or mortgage. That is insurance.
Yep.
Those are the food.
Yeah.
Those are essential. Then you have your lifestyle. That can be, I want to travel. I want to help out. I want to travel. I want to be a member of a country club. I really want to drive a really nice, because I'm a redneck, really nice truck. Those kind of things, right?
Yes.
Then you have your aspirational. Help grandkids out with college, set up a scholarship, make donations or some sort of charitable type of thing. Those are kind of aspirational, but we have to take care of the essential first.
Yep.
Then the lifestyle, because you got to be able, you want to be able to go out to eat, you want to be able to travel, but you may not be able to fly first class everywhere.
Yeah.
And you're still able to get the experience. So that's that lifestyle.
Well, and the lifestyle are the discretionary, the ones where you have the ability to scale up or scale down based on what's happening in the essential.
Exactly. And so as you're looking at that budget and kind of where that is, let's talk a little bit kind of about investment strategies and things that you can do right here, right now, to help not come into a retirement crisis.
Yep. So always, I think the first thing we say is making sure that you are diversified, not putting all your eggs in one basket in one place. So having exposure to all different asset classes to make sure that you are taking advantage of where opportunities lie at the time.
Yeah. So the diversification, and the thing that's tough about diversification, that means you have to have something inside the portfolio that's not working.
Absolutely.
Because investments zig when others zag, right? And a lot of people set and forget, and that's not necessarily the best thing to do.
No, for sure. You have to have a plan, and you have to be constantly, well, I shouldn't say constantly, you have to be strategically reviewing it and making changes where it warrants it.
The other thing that you can do from an investment strategy is make sure that you're maxing out the 401k. Make sure that you're making contributions into, you're maxing out the 401k, making contributions into retirement accounts, depending on your income level, traditional IRA. But something else that you can do, because clearly we have a debt problem in this country, taxes are probably going to have to go up, evaluating whether or not doing a Roth conversion makes sense, because that will give you tax-free income in retirement.
That's one of the most impactful things that we've seen the last couple of years, is looking at, for clients where they have the ability to do a conversion and take some of those traditional retirement assets and move them over to the after-tax side, the Roth side, such a huge impact it can make on taxes in the future, assets that they're passing on to beneficiaries later on in life. Those can be very impactful and make a huge difference.
Karen, one thing that to kind of go along those lines, people do have the opportunity to contribute to a Roth 401k also right here, right? And I think that it makes a lot of sense to sit down and evaluate, does it make sense for me to make that contributions and pay those taxes now? Right? And in some cases that may make sense. One thing also, when you're going through and you're looking at these kind of this retirement issue that you may have, if we go with the premise that tax rates are probably going to go up from here, and you have significant assets in your retirement accounts, tax deferred accounts, as it stands now, whether you're 73 or 75 at some point, well, hopefully everyone will be 75 at some point, whether you're 73 or 75, you're going to be required to take out money out of those retirement accounts. And the thing that we found is that people, a significant number of people, are going to end up being forced to take that required minimum distribution that's larger than what they need to be able to live.
Yeah, we've seen so many times in planning with clients where when we look at what they need to spend on a monthly basis and a yearly basis, we take into account inflation and taxes and everything else. By the time they reach 73 or 75 and start taking those RMDs, the number is so much larger than what they need, and now they have to pay additional tax on that too. So trying to bring those RMDs down is always the goal.
You know, the thing that I think a lot of people, when you're looking at this impending retirement crisis, and this is kind of interesting with some of the things that happen with Congress and being able to fund things. I mean, it seems like it's constant, right? Social Security.
The hot topic.
Sometimes people dismiss Social Security as if it's nothing. But the reality is that Social Security can be a significant series of payments, cash flow wise, to people. And it's vital to manage that the right way.
Absolutely. One thing we've seen, and to your point, so many people tell us when we sit down, oh, I'm not going to worry about Social Security. Either it may not be there, it's not a large dollar amount, it's not impactful to me. How many times have we seen that the cumulative benefit to a couple is in the neighborhood of $1.5 million, sometimes $2 million over their lifetime of cumulative benefits? That's real money, and that's huge.
And what's crazy about that is if I tell you the decision you're going to make today can have an impact of $1 million in cash flow over your lifetime, are you going to take that real seriously, and who are you going to get that advice from? And what is so amazing is that the average person gets their advice from their neighbor.
Oh, absolutely. Isn't that a terrifying thought?
Right. And the number of people who say, I'm going to start taking it at age 62. And the impact, because if you decide to consult or you decide to work at 62, that has a significant impact on taxes and what that benefit is. And undoing those choices is not easy.
No, it's not.
Taking it early is not, most cases, not a good thing. But there are situations where taking at your full retirement age does make sense. There are other situations where it makes sense to take it at age 70.
Yep, and for a married couple, it's so important to look at in which cases it makes sense to take at full retirement age or to delay. Sometimes it can be impactful for one spouse to take at full retirement age and the other to delay. Sometimes it can be impactful for both spouses to delay to 70. So looking at all parts of the situation and making sure you're making a good decision.
That's vital. So when we go and we talk about this impending retirement crisis, which really I think sometimes is a little bit of clickbait, right? The reality is that by the proper planning and everything that's inside of there, we have people who are living longer, people who have a lot of people have not saved enough to be able to live the lifestyle that they want to. And so if you had to say kind of the 3 or 4 big bullet points that in order to make sure you're protected against that, what they would be, I mean, we've hit on them, right?
I would say save now. The earlier the better. We all know the impact that compounding makes. So save now, control your costs where you can, have a plan.
Evaluate your allocations and the risk that you're taking on.
Yes.
And I think that this is really a very important point. A lot of times when people are looking for retirement, they view it as a date, right? And you got to figure out what is really going to fill your day when every day's a Saturday. Because you can only hunt, fish, quilt so much before you are like, that's it, I'm done. I don't want to chunk another lure, or my fingers are bleeding because I don't know how to sew. And so understanding what you're going to do, but you go into this retirement red zone, right? And there was a company that kind of coined this phrase, and I think it really makes a lot of sense in that the retirement red zone is really the 5 years before retirement and the 5 years after retirement, because generally speaking, those last 5 years of your working life, you're earning more money than you ever have in the past, and you actually have more free cash flow, generally speaking. What's amazing is that those first 5 years in retirement make a big difference. And that's where having that plan, evaluating your essential goals, your lifestyle goals, and then your aspirational goals makes so much sense, because people call us all the time and they say, hey, look, do I have enough money to retire? and without even knowing how much money they have, I say you bet. Just depends on what your lifestyle is going to be,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if
You might be able to retire, but you might have to live on $20,000 a year of income.
and believe it or not, we know people who live just on their Social Security and actually
Absolutely.
put a little money in the bank.
Yep.
But they're not traveling. They're not necessarily super engaged. They have no bills. So it depends on what your lifestyle, what you want to do. And I think that's where having that plan, evaluating your allocation, your 401k, your IRA, your investment accounts, how do they all work together? What's the most tax efficient way to get that money out? But understand that it's not a set and forget. Evaluating how that 401k, where those contributions are inside.
And the
there.
allocation inside the 401k.
That's
Yeah.
right. I mean, I think those are really the key points. And the reality is that we're not necessarily going to avoid the retirement crisis, which may happen in the general population. What our focus is making sure that you don't suffer from a retirement crisis, right? And doing these
Absolutely.
things.
Yep.
Well, with that, thank you very much. We hope you enjoyed this session right here of Wealth Strategies Unleashed with Concenture. And we will see you next week.
Yep. See you next time.